Hi, it's Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to the Magellan Network Show. My goal inside of this communication, this show, is to share with you my nearly 30 years of coaching some of the most successful financial advisors in North America. We're going to be talking about strategies, syntaxes. We're going to be bringing guests on from time to time, and I'm going to share with you what's working now. So think of this show as sort of like a little one-on-one kind of mini coaching cast, if you like, where we're going to be going in depth from time to time on strategies to help you grow your business, get more effective, become more efficient, find balance in your time management, grow your business, and quite frankly, whatever else is going on in the world today. So before we get to today's episode, I'd love for you to do a couple things for me. Number one, make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're doing the audio, make sure that you give us a review on whether Spotify or Apple. We'd really appreciate that. And quite frankly, that does help. It does matter when you rate things and like things and subscribe to things. It helps us get the word out to more of the industry. And lastly, I have a very special gift for you. Go to MagellanNetwork.net, so one word, MagellanNetwork.net, and I have for you a complimentary membership, 100% gratis, where you can tap into about between 50 and 75 hours of masterclasses, forms, tools, templates, and strategies. So please go ahead and make sure you go get that claimed, smash the like button and subscribe. And please go ahead and leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're on. And now, let's get to this week's episode. Hi, sir, Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. And greetings here from, it's not sunny and not warm, Southern California, more specifically the city of Santa Monica. I'm here hosting an event. Today, what I want to talk about in this episode is my big fear that our industry is losing the availability to influence, persuade, and communicate with clients and prospects. Now, why do I say that? We have some beautiful tools that are now available to advisors, right? We have all these planning softwares, right? From eMoney to Money Guy Pro to Right Capital to one-page financial plan. We have Asset Map. We have all these different tools that we can use, which are wonderful. My concern is that the advisors, especially younger advisors, are going to be over-reliant on them to go ahead and influence and persuade a client or prospect to say yes to them. So here's what I'm really saying. If you think about it, over 90% of buyers are going to be emotional decision makers. So what does that mean? It means that they're going to make a decision emotionally. And we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but let's look at the difference between emotional decision makers and logical decision makers, okay? When you buy a new car, and I'll ask you this question, the car you bought, and 90% of you are going to answer this question, was your decision primarily driven by emotion? The status the car would give you, how it looked, how it felt to drive it, stuff like that. And then you went ahead and justified your decision with some logic. Well, low down payment, low monthly, whatever it is, right? Oh, hey, it gets great gas mileage. It's got great crash test ratings, right? Things like that. We as humans have that same pattern when it comes to deciding on financial advice. It's no different, by the way. How a person buys a car, I know it's going to sound weird, but how a person buys a car is how a person is going to determine whether your recommendations, your game plan is what they want to do. So if you're sitting there with clients and prospects, on a monitor, going over to Monte Carlo situations of pie charts and graphs and all this other stuff, and kind of red, green, yellow, you're ahead of curve on retirement at whatever, and that's all you're doing is really giving them information because you think that, well, if I give them information, they're going to come to the proper decision. That's why they walk out and they say, well, let me think about it, or we'll get back to you. There should never be a situation in your game, in your business, where you have a client or a prospect having to think about it or having to get back to you. What that means is you missed something. You missed something, and that major miss was this. You did not emotionally tie that recommendation to that person, again, client or prospect, doesn't matter to me. Needs, wants, and wounds. So what are needs? Things that they say they really, really need, right? Well, what does somebody really need? Economic security, right? Not running out of money. Efficient tax strategies, right? Those are needs. But why do they need them? Those are their wants. Those are their most highly desired states. When I say states, I mean emotional states, right? So, for example, not running out of money. Well, what's the emotional state there? Security, certainty, right? Right? I mean, that's just way. Hey, I don't want to pay too much to the tax person. Well, what's that emotional state? Believe it or not, it's significance. Hey, I'm smart enough, or I hired smart people to make sure that we don't overpay. But again, it's an emotional state. And if you're not taking these 6 emotional states, or Tony Robbins calls these 6 human needs, and filter them through your influence and persuasion process, then you're missing a massive situation and opportunity to really become a great influencer, persuader, and coach. Here's where the old saying, what made Gretzky so great? Gretzky would say, I go to where the puck is going to be, not where it is today. So I'm saying to everybody right here who watches and listens to me that the advisor of the future, which is not too far away, by the way, it's probably here now, some of the key characteristics that you need in addition to being ethical, honest, smart, all those other things. You have to become a world-class persuader, a world-class influencer, and I don't mean like on Instagram or anything like that, but influence one-on-one or one-to-many. But more importantly, you've got to learn how to be a great coach. The difference between selling somebody and coaching them through a decision-making syntax is massive. If you're trying to sell somebody, you're going to talk at them. You're going to give them, information, features, benefits, right? You're going to and that's my concern, right? And I've seen this, by the way, where you get up on, you throw a Right Capital presentation or eMoney or Money Guy Pro up on the monitor in the conference room, right? Or on Zoom, and you're just kind of regurgitating information. And you really think the person there is actually paying attention. They're not. They're checked out. They're nodding their head yes, and they're agreeing. They're doing agreements because they don't want you to feel bad. They don't want to cause an issue, but they can care less. And you know how you know that? When they walk out and they didn't take your recommendation. That's how you know. There's the evidence. Oh, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. We don't know if we want to make some changes right now. Well, if you talk to somebody, I want you to think about this. If somebody comes into your world and says, I need help. I was referred to from a client, one of your clients, a COI, they came to a workshop, online lead generation, it doesn't matter. If they're sitting in front of you, it's not because they got nothing better to do in their lives. I mean, nobody says, I think today's a good day. Let's go get a second opinion on our money. Or, you know what? Let's go sit with some random financial advisor and just blow some time. Like, there are a lot of other things to waste time on. So they're there. They're there for a reason. Never forget that, all right? It's not some random act. Hi, Coach Joe Lucas here, and I'm just breaking here for a moment just to do a couple quick reminders. Number one, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast. In addition, please leave a comment or a review. Those things really, really matter. And share this episode with 3 of your colleagues inside the financial services space. And lastly, make sure that you go ahead and claim your free membership inside of Magellan Network. Now back to this week's episode. And if you go through that process and they don't become a client, let's say they're likable, that you can make economics work, right? You believe they're coachable, right? 3 things we need. And then you don't get them to the yes, that's on you. Oh, they're not committed. They don't want to commit to anything. They're afraid of change. No, you didn't frame the change properly. Oh, they want to go back and think about it. Why? Because they're confused because you didn't connect it emotionally to what they need, what they want, what their wounds are, issues. What are wounds? Situations that they want to avoid. What's one of the major situations somebody wants to avoid? Running out of money. That's probably number one on most people's minds, right? Especially in retirement. But if you say to them, well, you could run out of money, and that's all you say, or you're going to draw down, and based on our calculations here, you're going to draw down by the age of 85, and then based on our chart here, you're probably going to live like 92. What are you going to do for 7 years? I mean, that doesn't do anything. You're painting pictures for them. You want them to paint their own picture. See the difference? Salespeople paint for them. Coaches get the person to paint for themselves. So the question is, I'm a bit random here because I'm really excited by this, is imagine the possibility of sitting down with a client or prospect, doesn't matter, and you absolutely know you have the power to influence them. You know you can build rapport with them. You know you can gain their trust. You know you can run emotional diagnostic, which is a term I've come up with to really understand their emotional patterns, their behavioral patterns, right? Their 6 human needs, really kind of lock that all in. And then you craft your process to that. It's almost like, think of it this way, everybody speaks their own unique language. The problem is you only speak yours. And if you're only speaking yours and you mismatch, which happens a lot, you're not going to get the result, or it's going to take a lot longer, or it's a lot more energy and stuff like that. If you're watching or listening to this and you've come to any of my live events, the one thing you'll know about me is I have a diversity of different people in my universe I work with, right? From the engineers to the can't get their own way, kind of big picture, seat of the pants kind of person, and everything in between. Now, how can I be effective with them all? Because I adapt my style to what I'm dealing with. Like if you could listen in or watch some of my individual coaching work, you'll find for some of the people we have a very stoic, very we'll call data or information-oriented conversations, because that's the way that person operates. So I need to speak their language to get my point across, right? To give them advice, guidance, to coach them. But then the next Zoom I'll do, it could be somebody who I almost have to yell and scream at. And we get into a little bit of shouting match. And I got to get in their face, in a certain manner. Why? Because that's their style. And if I brought that analytical, logical conversation to that human being, it's like speaking Chinese to somebody who doesn't speak Chinese. It makes no sense, right? There's no influence there. So if you're in a situation where you're making recommendations to either hire you, recommendations to clients, and you're not getting what you need to get, in other words, you're not getting that yes, there's a gap in how you're approaching it. It's that simple. If they have a need for it, they truly want it, and yet they don't take action on it, you miss something. That's the bottom line. So what I want you to think about, and this would be very good, is to go back through some of your failures. Maybe a client that you made a recommendation to, and 6 months later, they're still recommending us. Like, for example, you recommend getting an estate plan done, and a year later, they still haven't done it. Look, nobody logically is going to get up in the morning and say, you know what, today's a great day to do an estate plan. Let me get on that. That's just going to be wonderful. It's going to be a wonderful experience. It's planning your own demise. It's not a wonderful experience. It's a necessary experience. But if you're having the conversation logically with your client and you're not disturbing them, you're not pattern interrupting them, you're not getting them to point, simple question. Hey, if you don't do this, and God forbid something were to happen to you, what do you think the negative consequences are to your family? Bite your tongue. Now you're letting them paint instead of you painting for them. What most advisors do is say, well, if we don't do this, you're going to be in probate. They'll list all the things, and remember, when it comes out of our mouth, it has to be evaluated for its truthfulness. If it comes out of your client or prospect's mouth, it's a fact. Never be a teller. Never be the one to make statements. You want to be the person that asks the right questions. Real coaching and real influence is about asking the right questions, not just making statements. So what I want you to do, I want you to look back at a couple of your clinical failures. Maybe it was a client who didn't take an action, or a prospect that you didn't get a yes from, and I want you to go back. And I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. Number one, did I get them emotionally involved in the decision? Number two, did I ask emotionally based questions? Number three, was I super congruent in doing this? So one of the elements of being a great coach, great influencer, great persuader is how you show up. So if you're just showing up and going through the motions, then that's why you got the result you got. Influence and persuasion is a transfer of emotions. Coaching is a process where you have people paint their own preferred or desired outcomes. And you also have them paint their own non-preferred and the outcomes they don't want, their heaven and hells. There's a whole process here. Now, I want you to think about that. And not here, but in a couple weeks, so we want to come back, I've put together Get the Yes 2.0. It is literally the industry's only influence, persuasion, and coaching training program. I've looked, I've not found it. There may be somebody else that does it. I haven't found it. I have people look for it. I've been teaching this program, or a predecessor program, now for over 20 years. But for the first time ever, I'm going to synthesize it in a way that is really not a sales program. Not about making you a better salesperson. In fact, salespersons don't do well in our business anymore. They just don't. But I'm going to teach you how to influence, persuade, and coach your clients and prospects in a very ethical and very effective manner that it's never going to feel like you're being a pushy salesperson. So we're not ready to announce that yet today, but I want you to think about our conversation today and ask yourself, with all these tools that I have, imagine the possibilities of taking all these wonderful tools that we have and now putting a better version of you on top of it, where you just know when you show up, man, I got this. Like, there's no doubt the outcome that you're going to drive. So that's what I want you to think about. And again, I want to thank you all for listening and watching this episode of the Magellan Network Show. And again, if you want the insider and you want the insider deal, make sure you're a member of Magellan Network. So you go to MagellanNetwork.net, and we'll make some announcements there. And again, thank you for your time today. See you all again next week. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Hey, if any of this resonated with you, I invite you to come to MagellanNetwork.net, and we have a powerful group coaching community of like-minded advisors. Come in for a trial. You and I will have a one-on-one conversation. Let's see if I can help elevate your game, both personally and professionally.